Hey everyone, my name's Dom, welcome back to the channel. How are you all doing? Hopefully you all had a good October as far as reading goes. Mine was definitely a good month for me, especially compared to September, which was a bit below par. Let's go and have a look at some specifics though. So as is now my custom, I'll start off with some reading stats for October and have a look at how that reflects upon the year-to-date figures. So for October, as I say, it was a better month for me than September. I did carry a book over that I was halfway through in September anyway, but including that one in the October figures, because that's the month I'd have finished it, I read 4 books in October, which was a total of 2,287 pages, or an average of 572 pages per book. So as is the norm for me reading epic fantasy, most of these do tend to be pretty big books. The average page count is definitely up on the year to date, which is standing at 520, from a total of 17,695 pages read. As far as the average ratings go, again, October was a little bit higher than the year to date, standing at 3.88 compared to the year figure of 3.75. So a good month all round as far as I'm concerned. As far as the series checking goes, 3 of the 4 books that I read in October are part of brand new series, so I've added 3 to the series starts for the year, which now stands at 15. There were no new DNFs, series finishes, or me getting up to date with a series, so reading all of the books that have been released so far. So those figures are standing still at 4, 4 and 8 respectively, and if you add those 3 series that I started to the ongoing series list, that means I can say I'm in the middle at the moment of 27 different fantasy and sci-fi series. As a bit of a spoiler for the rest of the video, you can see that the days since my last 5-star read has continued to increase. It's now standing at 128 days since I finished a last book that I rated at 5 stars. I did get close this time round, but I'm still waiting for that next 5-star read. So let's have a look at the books that I did actually get through for October. So as I said, the first of these was a carryover. I started reading this one in September and it was a bit of a slog for me. I was taking a little while to get through it. I did get through it finally in October though, and that was Best Served Cold by Joe Abercrombie. I haven't done a dedicated review for this one, and I know a lot of booktubers were reading Best Served Cold around about the same time, so at the moment I'm not planning to do a dedicated review because I think we've had enough of those, and also to be honest I'm not really feeling it. I'm not really kind of feeling like doing a review. I will link a couple of reviews in the description box below from Andrew and from Megan, because they kind of say everything that I want to say anyway, so I don't feel like I've got anything new to add to the conversation with regards to Joe Abercrombie. As far as Best Served Cold goes, I did overall enjoy it. There were a number of things that I really liked about it, and there were also a fair few things that I didn't really like about it. I've mentioned before in other videos about the sex scenes that we've got in here, which were just really, I mean, they were quite graphic, but they were also, regardless of whether they were graphic or not, they were very awkward and didn't really do anything for me. It's not something that I tend to read in fantasy anyway, so it's not something that I look out for or anything along those lines, but I particularly didn't like the sex scenes in this book. It just really put me off what I was reading, and some of that might be why it took me a little bit longer to read, because I was kind of getting bogged down in sections of the book that I felt kind of dragged a little bit. One of the things I really like about Joe Abercrombie's First Law World is the Northmen. I keep saying that in videos as well, and I was quite pleased to see that we do have one of the Northmen in this book, Call Shivers, who makes an appearance in the First Law trilogy. It's like he gets upgraded from a guest star to a series regular for this book, and I did like his character. However, I did think that it was kind of a bit weird. It was almost like Call Shivers, and by extension Joe Abercrombie, was desperate to remind us that he was part of that kind of group of Northmen with Dogman and Tall Three Trees and Harding Grim and all of those group, because he mentioned them so many times. None of them made an appearance in this book, but their names were mentioned so often it felt like they were characters within this book as well. As far as the ratings go, I gave this 3.5 stars because I liked it, but not kind of really liked it. There were too many things that kind of bogs me down with this book, and it wasn't enough for me to upgrade it to 4 stars. So 3.5 stars. scored 71% in my weighted scale, which puts it at equal 48th in my all-time list. Next, I picked up the one book in my October reads that wasn't a new series start. So this was book 2 in a series, and that was An Echo of Things to Come, book 2 of a Lacania series by James Islington. I'll link in the top corner my review for book 1 in the series, Shadow of What Was Lost, which I really enjoyed, and I was really looking forward to this series to see if it might be one that can make it onto my top 10 of fantasy when I do eventually at some point get around to recording that video. I did enjoy this book as well. I think I rated it a little bit lower than book 1 in the series. It was a good book, but again, there were just a few things that I wasn't too keen on. Without spoiling anything, there's one of the characters from Shadow of What Was Lost who has, for storyline reasons essentially, he has no memory of who he is, his past or anything along those lines. And in this second book in the series, he starts to get a lot of flashbacks, he's starting to remember things and piece together who he was. And his chapters deal with a lot of those flashbacks, and it's something that doesn't really work for me. I wasn't really kind of drawn into those sections, and it was almost like I was just waiting for those sections to finish so I could continue reading the actual story, looking forward as opposed to looking back. So I'm not the biggest fan of those, and there were a lot of those flashback sequences within this second book. The storyline and the way that it kind of moved the overall plot forward I thought was pretty good. There are definitely some things that I'm excited to look at and see how they get resolved in the third book in the series. So I'm definitely, although this one was rated a little bit lower than the first book, I'm definitely still looking forward to the third book in the series. And it's not a case of to cross off another finished series from the list. It's because I really want to see how it ends, how all the characters get to their resolution essentially as far as their storyline goes, and see who's left standing at the end and all of those things. The rating for An Echo of Things to Come I put at 4 stars, so a bit higher than Best Served Cold, and the weighted scale where I individually score the world building, the plot, the general enjoyment, characters and so forth came out also a little bit higher. This one was at 73%, which puts it at equal 41st in that all-time list. Next up was my favourite book of the month. This is the book that nearly got me to that 5 stars. I rated this one 4.5, and if you've seen my review you'll know that it is We Ride the Storm by Devin Madsen. So this one came out as the winner when mid-month I read the opening chapter of 5 different books and decided from that which one I would carry on with immediately afterwards, and I really liked the opening chapter, the opening kind of chapter of each of our 3 main characters actually, and that continued throughout the book. There were little bits that I wasn't quite as fond on. The writing style was the lowest kind of scoring element for me, where I wasn't quite at home. It took me a while to get used to having a first person perspective, but from 3 different main characters. I'm used to having just a first person perspective where it's a single character all the way through, so we got a bit more than that here, and it just took me a little while to get used to it. But overall, book 1 in the Reborn Empire series I really liked, and I can't wait to continue, not least because books 2 and 3 are going to look absolutely great on my bookshelf next to this one. So ratings wise, as I say, I gave this 4.5 stars out of 5, so very close, and it was just that little bit of kind of unfamiliarity for me with the writing style that knocked it down that half a mark and took it from 5 stars, so really not a lot in it. On my weighted scale, it came out at 76%, which was equal 33rd in my all-time list, and so it's the highest entry on both of those rating scales of the books that I read in October. And then the final book that I read for October, this one I'm going to do a review in a couple of days' time, but this one is the first book of a little series that I want to do with kind of under the radar books. Not quite sure what to title the series or if it even needs a kind of a series name at this point, but I'm going to do a series of reviews which are based on books that you just don't seem to see on BookTube. And this is in my opinion, so there may be reviews on there, but in my kind of community, in the circles that I move around in, I do not see these books. And I will generally do a little bit of a search just to see whether the reviews and the videos are there and I'm just not seeing them, or if they are actually things that I can really class as being under the radar, at least in terms of proper coverage, dedicated videos on BookTube. So I've got a few books which can fit into this category, and I'll probably kind of move them along if I put together an individual playlist for this kind of series. We Ride the Storm being one of them, because there are no real reviews that I saw on BookTube of that one. Hopefully that'll change as more people pick it up, because it is a really, really good book. But the second one, and the first one in this series proper, is Blood of Heirs by Alicia Wanstall-Berk. So this one I've been looking to pick up for a long time. I connect with the author on Instagram, and I've seen this book in a lot of her posts and picked it up when it was on offer a little while ago. So last month I decided that I was going to pick this one up and actually see what it was all about. So this is book one in a series called the Kreidik Sagas. It covers two main characters, Lidan and Ran, and I will go into the characters and the storylines with them in a lot more detail in the dedicated review that I've got coming up on the channel. Overall, I did definitely enjoy this book, and I really want to move on to book two in the series, but I think book one is kind of more set up. It's getting you to know the situation and the world and things like that. And I'm really looking forward to book two being the real kind of driving force of this trilogy before book three comes out, I think in 2022. The overall rating that I gave for the book, as a little bit of a spoiler for that dedicated review, was 3.5 stars. And it came out on my weighted scale at 70% flat, which is equal 53rd in my long list of fantasy books that I've rated using this weighted scale. So although it's not the highest of scores, it's still definitely a recommendation because I really enjoyed this book, and 3.5 stars is definitely a good overall rating. So in terms of my October reads, We Ride the Storm was definitely my book of the month. I really enjoyed it. I was so pleased that it came out on top of the kind of first chapter read challenge, and that I really, really liked the book as I got further through it. I found that it was one of those kind of books that I just couldn't put down, and I was almost desperate to finish it because I wanted to finish it and see what happened, as opposed to kind of wanting to finish it because I just want to get rid of this book. So if you do get the opportunity to read Devin Madsen's Reborn Empire, I definitely recommend it. I will be going into book two in the next couple of months, I'm sure, because I want to see what happens next, and I really want to carry on with this particular series. The other series that I started, Joe Abercrombie's kind of Great Leveler, the trio of standalones in the First Law world. I don't know when I will pick up the next book. I can't remember whether that is Red Country or The Heroes. I will pick both up. I've got them on my shelf, but I don't know when I'm going to read them. I'm not kind of desperate to go out there and carry on as soon as possible. The Kreidik Sagas by Alicia Wanstall-Berk. Definitely looking forward to that one more than the Joe Abercrombies. I really want to see what happens in this particular series, and I'm looking forward to having a second book continuing that story. It's set a few years later, so our characters have grown up a bit. They're quite young in Blood of Heirs, and they're going to be a bit older therefore in the second book, which is Legacy of Ghosts, and I'm really excited to seeing how they've developed in the meantime and how they continue to develop on the page. So all in all, it was a good month with 3 good series that I do definitely want to continue, and a continuation of another series, Lacanius, that I'm hoping is going to be one of my top series by the time that I do read book 3 in that one. Okay, so what do we have in store for November? Well, as we've seen in recent months, it's a difficult one for me being a mood reader, and I'll generally have kind of a list of books that I may get to, and some might just randomly slot themselves in there as we're going through the month as well. So I'm quite fortunate in that respect at the moment, being a mood reader, in that I don't have any commitment books that I need to read for November. I've got currently 1 advanced review copy sitting on my shelf back here, just behind my ear, which is Mickey 7, which is a sci-fi that's released in February. So I'm going to read that in December or January, I would imagine, but it's not going to be, I don't think, one of my November reads. I've also got another sci-fi series, the Kuiper series by Wilbur Seymour, which is actually out on loan at the moment. That's one of the books that I was potentially planning to read in October. Didn't get round to because even if I wanted to, my mate came around, saw them on the shelves, and he's taken them away and he's actually reading them at the moment and quite enjoying them. So I can't read them even if I wanted to, but whenever they do return to my library, they'll be back on the list for me to be looking to read pretty soon, I think. For this month though, I did start, I'm filming this on the 1st of November, and I did start last night after I finished Blood of Heirs yesterday afternoon. I did start last night with Illborn by Daniel T. Jackson, and I'm about 10-11% through this one at the moment and quite enjoying it, although it's not yet properly got going. There's still plenty of moving forward, obviously, with that one. It's a pretty beefy book. It's about 700 and something pages, so I've got another 600 or so to go on that easily, and definitely enjoying it so far, so hopefully that's going to be a good one, and I'll continue enjoying it all the way through until I get to the end of it. That's going to be book 2 in my kind of under the radar series, because I'm seeing it getting picked up a lot. It's done really well in the SPFBO. It's not quite made it to the final 10. It got knocked out in the semi-final stage with its respective kind of blog or reviewer, so did really well there, but not quite making it to the final. I'm really enjoying it though, and I can imagine that there's going to be a lot more kind of movement on this one. I do know already that Andrew and Leslie, Andrew's Wisley Reads and the Nerdy Narrative, they're both going to be picking this up in, I think, March. And Petrik's just recently picked up a copy of Illborn as well, so he's going to be reading it soon too. So we are going to be seeing this one on BookTube a little bit more, but at the moment when I've looked around there's not really anything, so I'll get a review up of this one in a week or two's time and we can all see what it's about and how it goes down, as far as my opinion goes at least. Another one that I'm looking forward to, and again it's another new series read, so I'm not doing very well as far as closing down series towards the end of the year, but definitely I'm opening up a few new series for my reading. But this one's another sci-fi, and it's one that I've been looking forward to again for a little while now. But this month I think I might actually start The Protectorate by Megan O'Keefe. Book 1 is Velocity Weapon. This was in my series check-in where I looked at the series that I want to be starting, and I'm happy that I'm getting a bit closer to actually picking that one up. Trinity from Portable Magic has recently read this trilogy and she absolutely loved it, so there's some high praise there, and I'm hoping that I'm going to have similar feelings by the time I get through this one. Outside of that, I don't know. I'm not quite sure whether to go with series continuations or new series to pick up. The series continuations that I've got that I'm kind of really looking forward to, I've got available and I'm looking forward to carrying on with. We've got the third book in, Lacanius, which I'll probably do either November or December to at least tie that one up before the end of the year. I've got book 2 in the Farseer trilogy. It was back in June that I was reading that one. I think it was carryover actually, so I started that one in May, finished it in June, so it's been a few months since I was in the realm of the Elderlings there. And then because I liked it so much, we've got, I think it's We Lie With Death, book 2 in the Reborn Empire series by Devin Madsen. So those are probably the 3 that I'm most looking forward to continuing the series, that I might do so this month. Things like the Kreidik sagas, I'll give it at least a month in between. I'm not going to go directly into it as one of my next books, but maybe by the end of the year I'll pick that one up as well. We'll just see how it goes essentially. Other books that I've got immediately available, some of the books from this little section there, where I've got the remainder of those kind of first chapter reads. I've got The Wolf of Oren-Yaro, I've got The Bone Ships, and then digitally I've got Aching God and Kings of the Wild. So those are all definite options as well, because I did enjoy the first chapter of each of those 5 books enough to want to carry on with the book reasonably quickly. So there we go anyway, that's my October review, a bit of a preview to November. Let me know in the comments down below how your month went. Hopefully, as I said at the top of the video, you had a good reading month as well. Also, let me know what you're looking forward to in November and if there's anything that you're desperate to get to or to finish off before the year closes out. If you like this video, as always, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button whilst you're down there. I'll see you in another video soon, but until then, as always, take care of yourselves, read some good books. Bye.